Hey guys, insight number 5, last one from the week. So this is Daniel 6, a story that pretty much everybody knows that's in a country that has Christian people in it. And maybe even some that don't have Christian people in it might have heard of this story. It's a pretty famous one. So, I've entitled this one, A New King, Jealous Haters, and a Night Where a Death Trap Becomes a Petting Zoo. Creative title, though. There we go. So, Darius now takes over as king after he killed Belshazzar, who we just talked about did not pay attention to the writing on the wall, put it off and procrastinated in his arrogance, and that was his downfall. So, Darius now makes Daniel one of the presidents, because he's like, oh, this guy's good. He recognizes him as like, this is a good guy to have around. I want him around to advise me. He's smart, he's articulate, he's like loyal, good dude. I want him as in my court as such. And then in verse 3 it tells us that Daniel was actually preferred. He was kind of Darius's favorite. And it's like, well, yeah, because he's such a good guy, right? And he's not trying to derail anything Darius is doing. He's respectful and living Christ-like as Daniel does. So the other presidents and princes were jealous. There comes the haters. And how often do we see that or feel that in our lives when we're trying to really do the best that we can do? People are going to hate on you. They don't like it. They don't want you to be a tall poppy. They want to cut you down. They're like, why can't you be as miserable and, unhappy as we are? And I'm like, well, because we choose to be happy. We choose to live after the manner of happiness. Even if we're not joyful today, we choose to live in a way that will bring happiness to us. So if we're a tall poppy, we're going to be a tall poppy. Own it, live it, be it. And if you get haters, it's okay. You'll see what happens to them. So they couldn't actually find anything wrong. I love that. So almost everyone knows this account of Daniel in the lion's den. So I don't really need to tell you exactly what's going on. We're going to cover it a little bit, but you kind of know it. So it's right up there with Noah and the ark, Moses and the many miracles that he performed, and even Christ's story. People know of Daniel in the lion's den. It's a Sunday school favourite for many churches. So how has your gospel covenant living life been interrupted by haters? Because Daniel's was interrupted by jealous haters. They came in and said that in verse 5, they couldn't find anything wrong with Daniel. They couldn't take any of the laws and say he's doing this wrong, or he's taking bribes, or he hasn't done his job. There was nothing they could find. They couldn't catch him on a lie, and you can know they tried, right? They would have tried. This isn't something that was just new. They would have really tried to tear him down. And as I said, Darius loved Daniel, so they had to get something and trick the king to get rid of Daniel. So that's what haters try and do. They, lie and use subterfuge to try and get rid of you. And does it ever work? Not really. Not when you're living the way Christ wants you to. That backfires on them all the time. So they get to this point where they're like, okay, so we see him praying. And so if we make this proclamation where you can only pray to the king or the king's gods, but not like the way Daniel was praying. They established a royal statute in verse 7 there, to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. So basically, you go ask the king or you pray to the king. You don't go pray to a god. And they got this past the king, sort of writing it, in a way. Yeah, it says there, now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. So the king signed it because he's like, oh yeah, that's how we live, that's fine, that's how we've always lived. Not realizing that his favourite is praying to, God, not the king. He didn't realize that because it's not like they're besties. He really cares for him, but he is a member of his royal court, so he is still in servitude. So it's not like they hang out and, Daniel started teaching him the gospel or anything. It's not that kind of situation. So now when Daniel saw that writing it was signed, and he went into his house and the windows were open, and he knelt down in full view of everyone and prayed, giving that example again, living by the example. Now, I know we're not supposed to pray in public, and he wasn't praying in public because he wasn't standing on a street corner making a big deal out of it. He was, again, living the gospel by example. He prayed where he knew everyone could see him, but they couldn't hear him. But they could see that he was doing that. And like to say that for all the Jewish people that were in captivity with him, keep praying to God. Don't give up. Don't give up just because a bit of paper says that they're going to kill you. No, keep praying. So when they found these men assembled, because they like heard that Daniel's doing this, they captured him and said, oh, you're in, breach of this decree. You're in trouble. They took him to the king. And when the king heard the words, he was displeased with himself. He's like, but this is Daniel. And he's like, well, I've got no other choice. I've got to now throw him into the lion's den. So the king commanded, they brought Daniel, this is in 16, and cast him into the den of lions. The king spake unto Daniel and said, thy God whom thou servest continually, will he deliver thee? Like, if you're praying to this God, will he deliver you? Like, he will deliver you. He will. Like, if you've got faith in him, this is how much faith he had in Daniel. He didn't have faith in God. He had faith in Daniel's faith in God. And we can do that. Sometimes it's really helpful to do that if you know someone. So the stone's brought, he's thrown in there, it goes overnight. The king goes to his palace. He passed the night fasting. He didn't have any music. He couldn't sleep. He did sleep a little bit, and then he rose very early in the morning to go and check on him. And he gets to the den, and he's a lamentable voice, and he's crying out, thinking, he'll be gone. One of my favorites is gone. I wanted him to be my friend. I wanted to care about him. If I knew more about him, I wouldn't have signed this decree. He's feeling terrible. And then he hears back from Daniel saying, it's okay, I'm here. God shut the lions' mouths. I'm good. He's delivered me like he said he would, like I knew he would. And then the king's just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And he brought him up and did exceedingly good for him. And then he commanded, now this is the bit where the haters get punished. And this happens immediately in this case. For a lot of us, the haters don't get punished till later in life. But immediately he gets not just the guys who did it, but their families. And chucks all them in the lion's den. That's retribution. And I'm like, okay, that's a bit of cold-hearted retribution. I'm pretty sure the wives and kids didn't deserve that, but, that's what it was like in those days. Bible's pretty heavy sometimes like that. What can we learn from this, though? So, has your covenant life been interrupted by haters? Because mine has. It's just awesome in verse 5 that they couldn't find anything wrong with Daniel, and I would pray that people would say the same of me. I'm pretty sure they'd find something wrong, but I would like to say that if they were trying to tear me down, there'd be very little to nothing that they could say, oh, she's lying, or she's cheating, or like bribing someone, or whatever. Like, I don't live like that. I don't want any of that in my life. So they would have to make something up, which is what my haters did too. They made something up. So the king was lamenting Daniel, and in verse 23, exceedingly glad that he was fine. And note the retribution enacted on the haters. So that does happen. Now, as I said, for a lot of us, I wouldn't wish any of my haters to be thrown into and eaten by lions. That would be horrible. I'm not like that, and I don't think Daniel would have wished that on these guys either, but it was still the king's decree. But, we as good living Christians are probably, we just leave that to Christ, because Christ is going to enact a punishment on those people way worse than we would. And then we don't have to worry about it, and we don't have to get involved in that vitriol hatred that we have inside of us. We can just say, actually, Christ, you got this, because Christ has got your back. And he will magnify and bless others through your faith and example. And Daniel's story is completely about that. So there you go. Elder Rasband, he said, I plead with you to set aside worldly influences and pressures and seek spirituality in your daily life. And that is what Daniel did. He set aside all those worldly things. He wasn't concerned about that. He didn't want riches and titles. He just wanted to be a good person. Became good prophet, visionary, dream interpreting person. Good on him. So I love Daniel for that and his example. So that's what we can learn from Daniel. There's some thoughts in there. I hope you got something out of this week. And yeah, I just love the bit where the Lord turns the death trap into a petting zoo, because that would be so cool. Not that I really want to have to face that and try it out, right? Anyway, so thank you. Appreciate you. Love you guys. Stay safe out there. Join us next week. We're going to be over in Joel, I think. No, Hosea and Joel at the same time, I think. Haven't quite got that far in this week yet to have a look. But no doubt it'll be great because we're coming to the end of it, wrapping it up, and looking forward to New Testament year. Anyway, love you guys. Mwah. See yous.